You've probably heard of the Rothschilds, the banking dynasty that shaped Europe's wars and rewrote its politics. But few remember the family who quietly did the same in the East. A dynasty built not on armies, thrones, or ideology, but on movement, information, and the hidden currents of global trade. They were called the Sassoons, exiles turned merchants, merchants turned financiers, financiers turned aristocrats. Their rise was extraordinary, almost improbable. Their decline was quiet, almost invisible. And their legacy still shapes the global economy in ways most people never notice. Welcome to The Financial Story. Today we uncover how the Rothschilds of the East built an empire without borders, and how that empire dissolved just as silently as it rose. The story begins not in London's financial district or New York's skyscrapers, but far from the centers of Western power, in Baghdad, inside the old Ottoman Empire. David Sassoon was born in 1792, the son of the treasurer to the governor. His family had been respected Jewish merchants for generations, managing caravans and trade routes stretching from Basra into Persia. But in unstable empires, wealth is a double-edged sword. Influence draws suspicion. Suspicion invites political danger. Power shifted, alliances changed, and the Sassoons suddenly found themselves on the wrong side of authority. Persecution followed quickly. In 1829, David fled Baghdad with nothing but his family, his faith, and a lifetime of knowledge about how the world traded. He arrived in Bombay, hot, crowded, noisy, and unforgiving. For most exiles, it was an ending. For David, it was a blank slate. He had no title, no formal education, no political backing, but he had something far more valuable. He understood supply, demand, and the unseen rhythms of global exchange. He began small: cotton, yarn, textiles, anything that moved through the port. And he built something rare for the era: trust across cultures, Jews, Indians, Arabs, Armenians. He hired them all, spoke their languages, and understood their worlds. In a colony divided by caste, class, and creed, David Sassoon built a network that ignored borders entirely. Then came the product that would transform the family's fortunes and stain their legacy: opium. The British East India Company exported opium from India into China, where addiction was widespread despite strict bans. Demand didn't disappear. It simply slipped underground. Most merchants avoided the trade for fear of risk, violence, or moral scrutiny. David Sassoon saw something different: a system that needed structure. He didn't operate opium dens, smuggling boats, or criminal networks. Instead, he financed the traders, insured the shipments, stored the product, and organized the flow. He became the infrastructure behind the trade. His ships sailed under the Union Jack. His warehouses stored tons of opium destined for Chinese ports. To critics, he profited from human suffering. To defenders, he merely participated in the global economy Britain itself created. But the outcome was undeniable. David Sassoon became one of the wealthiest men in Asia. And unlike many wealthy merchants, he didn't waste his fortune on luxury alone. He reinvested relentlessly. Ports, textile factories, mills, hospitals, synagogues. He built not only a business, but an ecosystem. He didn't just move goods. He built the roads they moved on. That was the essence of Sassoon's strategy: turn profit into permanence. When the Opium Wars forced China's ports open, the world scrambled for access. Most merchants rushed in blindly, chasing silver, silk, and fast profit. The Sassoons did what they always did. They calculated. David's son, Elias David Sassoon, entered China backed by a functioning global network already spanning oceans. He opened offices in Hong Kong and Shanghai, two ports that would soon define the commercial future of Asia. Shanghai in the late 19th century was a strange city, half Chinese, half colonial, ruled by treaties, guarded by foreign soldiers, filled with bankers, traders, missionaries, smugglers, and drifters. Fortunes were made overnight. and lost even faster. Into this chaotic world, the Sassoons brought something rare: order. They financed trade routes, leased land, built warehouses on the Bund, the waterfront that would become Shanghai's symbol of power. By the 1880s, diplomats across Asia had a name for them: the Rothschilds of the East. Not because they manipulated European politics like the Rothschilds did, but because they mastered the deeper art, moving capital across continents faster than governments could react. By the early 20th century, the Sassoons had completed a transformation almost unmatched in history. They were no longer exiles or merchants. They were aristocrats. Albert Abdullah Sassoon returned to Britain and was knighted by Queen Victoria herself. Their family estates filled society pages. Their philanthropy funded museums, universities, and civic institutions. The exiled merchants of Baghdad now stood shoulder to shoulder with the British elite. Meanwhile, in Shanghai, the younger generation expanded the empire even further. They controlled banks. They owned textile factories and shipping fleets. They built luxury hotels and reshaped skylines. Their flagship building on the Bund, the Sassoon House, became a symbol of stability in a city defined by volatility. They weren't just participating in the global system, they were shaping it from within. But every empire, and especially the silent ones, eventually reaches a moment it cannot avoid. The first shock came in 1929, the Great Depression. Global trade froze, factories slowed, ships sat idle at port, credit evaporated. The Sassoons survived by pivoting quickly, but survival was no longer enough. The world itself was changing. Corporations replaced family dynasties, governments centralized authority, bureaucracy replaced mobility. Across Asia, nationalism surged, colonial structures fractured. In China, revolution and Japanese invasion shattered the world the Sassoons had built. Properties were seized, markets collapsed, trade routes closed overnight. Their greatest strength, mobility, became a liability in a world rapidly closing its borders. And then World War II scattered the family across continents, weakening the network that had once been their advantage. By the 1940s, the Sassoons were still wealthy, but they were no longer powerful, no longer essential, no longer the Rothschilds of the East. Their collapse wasn't dramatic. It was slow, silent, and inevitable. The world forgot the Sassoons. But the system they pioneered did not disappear. It evolved. Today's global giants, Amazon, Apple, BlackRock, Tencent, operate using the same architecture the Sassoons mastered: borderless power, global supply chains, influence without territory, and strength built on networks rather than nations. They don't conquer land, they conquer markets. They don't command armies, they command information. The Sassoons built shipping empires, modern giants built digital ones. The tools changed, the principle didn't. Globalization was not invented in Silicon Valley. It was perfected centuries earlier by merchant dynasties like the Sassoons. Their rise proved that capital moves faster than politics. Their fall proved that no network is immune to the world that sustains it. And from their story comes a warning the modern world desperately needs to hear. The same forces that once made the Sassoons unstoppable now test every global corporation. Fragile supply chains, political instability, rising nationalism, and economic imbalance. The question that ended the Sassoon dynasty now hangs over the 21st century. What happens when the world that made you powerful begins to collapse? History doesn't shout, it whispers. The Sassoons rose because they understood movement. They fell because they mistook stability for safety. Their empire thrived on imbalance, and imbalance always collects its debt. Today's corporations believe they're immune to history. But history isn't gone. It simply waits. Collapse is rarely explosive. It begins quietly in the pressure points no one pays attention to. When power becomes borderless, but responsibility does not, the fall becomes unavoidable. The Sassoons left behind buildings, accounts, donations, and influence, but the lesson they left behind is far more lasting. No empire, financial, digital, or political, is permanent. Only its consequences survive. If this story gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.